Hello, my name is William Duncan, and this is my presentation on historical trauma and law enforcement. It goes through the relationship between African Americans and law enforcement, shaped by centuries of systemic racism, violence, and mistrust. Tracing all the way back from slavery, there has been a tension between African American citizens and law enforcement, both personal and systemic. A statement from the Coroner Commission stated that police were, quote, the immediate triggers of almost every episode of urban civil unrest. This history of tension created from past trauma and current racism, which can cause encounters with the police to escalate far out of proportion than ever normally would be from simple interactions. With this increased tension that escalates situations, it has contributed to an increase of arrests, incarcerations, and death from interactions with police. What is historical trauma? Historical trauma is defined as a multi-generational trauma experience by specific cultural, racial, or ethnic groups. This is an important concept to understand in order to understand the current relations between African American citizens and police officers. Even with the vast improvement in law enforcement, past traumas experienced by people either far in the past or experienced by similar people can create a prejudice towards law enforcement that has been created over the course of centuries. The frayed relationship between law enforcement can be traced all the way back to the days of slavery, where law enforcement had a role of control over slaves, a way to enforce slavery through fear. This early systemic role of law enforcement was an oppressor rather than a protector, which is an image that is maintained partially to current day. The Civil Rights Era. Often during the Civil Rights Era, law enforcement was used to suppress peaceful protests of African Americans who were demanding equal rights, which was enforcing segregation with the use of force. This was also an infringement of rights. Racism was so deeply ingrained in officers, they infringed on rights, which created an image of oppression rather than a keeper of peace. This was an abuse of the authority of law enforcement. Disparity in arrests in current day. This study done in 2020 showed how per 100,000 people, 4,223 African Americans were arrested, while on the other hand, only 2,092 white Americans were arrested. This was a disparity of 2 times the arrest rate, which, with statistics like these, and what they imply, it is only natural to feel fear and wariness towards law enforcement. With past racism and current racism, which is present in the justice system, along with media making high-profile cases even more public than ever before, it has created an erosion of trust. The damage of trust is not from a single incident, it is a pattern. How this trauma shapes encounters. With this historical trauma and current events, it has created a state of fear and anxiety, even before any interaction between person and police has started. Anger and mistrust is a common feeling, especially towards a group who has mistreated, prosecuted friends and family and community. When going into an interaction with law enforcement, having feelings of fear, anxiety, anger, and mistrust can create a far worse situation. Having these emotions can cause people to panic and act irrational and aggressive towards officers which forces an officer to react, which further escalates the situation. Why does understanding the relationship matter? Understanding the relationship between officer and citizen is an important thing, especially for law enforcement. For law enforcement, it's important to understand why someone is acting as if they have personally wronged them, or is acting irrational before the interaction has even started. As an officer, it is important to be able to determine whether someone is acting suspicious or if they are afraid. Are they acting out on their aggression, or are they feeling as if they are about to be or are being oppressed? That is the certain image people carry. It is important to know this in order to act accordingly to the situation. It is important as an officer to help restore the image that has been tainted over hundreds of years. Some of the key takeaways of this presentation are the strain between officer and citizen can be traced all the way back to slavery and the civil rights era, and this can create a multi-generational trauma called historical trauma. Paired with modern disparities in arrests and mistreatment of African American citizens, it has created a very poor image of law enforcement, and it is important to understand this in order to be able to be aware and create better outcomes in order to repair the frayed relationship between officer and citizen.